Hey guys, Equinox is going to be the Dawn of the Infinites guide for Murozond's Rise, and I'm going to go over all of the trash mobs, all the bosses, what they do, and how to deal with them. So let's get right into it. So this first area is going to have 3 mini-bosses, and then Infinite Twilight Magesses, and Tears Vanguards. Tears Vanguards just do a frontal that puts a bleed. The Magesses do 2 types of cast. They have Epoch Bolt, which is a cast that you just have to see, like either CC or kick. It does recast on CC. Then they have Corroding Volley, which is a huge nuke if it goes off, but it does not recast on CC. So any CC, knocks, stuns, disorients, literally any form that will stop the cast will stop it. And then, yeah, that's all you have to do. Now, there's 3 types of mini-bosses. So there's Valo, Time-Sworn Keeper. He has Temporal Strike, which is a strike that puts a bunch of circles on the ground that you have to dodge. And then he does the shield, which you just move mobs out of. It also works as a DR for you, so use that to your advantage. If you guys ever did the upper Mechagon, same thing. Then there's the Spurlock Time-Swarm Sentinel, and what he does is he does a charge. The charge targets a player, and then it dashes through them, does a lot of damage. Then he does like a little blind puddle. So I'm going to show you here. He does a blind puddle. You cannot target him in here. It's like Smoke Bomb. So you have to have one person jump in here and kick it. And this kick is kind of like a grip. Like it grips you into the sand thing and does a bunch of damage. And it basically just kills you. So you need to have one person kick to that. One melee kick is plenty. So you can just have the tank kick it ideally because they're not going to take any damage from the puddle. And that's pretty much how you deal with them. He's really simply as a mechanic. And then there's Larai, Time-Sworn Maiden, and she does Ancient Radiance, which is just a big AoE nuke, and then Orb of Contemplation, which is a boomerang from where she started the cast, and it's a ball that goes out from her hitbox, does a big damage and stuns you if you get hit, and then returns where it started from once it was cast. So you're going to see there's the AoE, and then you're going to see the orb. There it goes out, and it'll return. And then there's that. There it returns. And that's it. That's literally all you have to do for the whole area. Very simple. If you're a tank class like a VDH, you can pull a lot of the casters at once. If you are someone with less CC or a group with less CC, then you don't have to pull so many of the mobs at once. You can just do it pretty slow. This trash is pretty efficient. You basically just want to get the mini bosses out of the way fast as possible and then do one pack for RP while the RP for tier is going. The tier RP is like 30 seconds long, so you want to have something to do in that time. But yeah, this first area is really simple. Just go down the list of mobs, get all the mini bosses down, and then move on to the boss. So let's move over to the boss. So Tyr has a couple abilities. So the issue with Tyr is his spell like order is random. So he'll always do Spark of Tyr first, right as the fight starts, and then he'll go between 3 abilities. So he has Titanic Blow, which is a tank frontal, Infinite Annihilation, which is a group conal that you have to dodge, and then Dividing Strike, which is a soak that at least 2 people have to soak. Spark of Tyr puts 2 dots out, and when you dispel one, it does huge damage. So it's like Thunderhead if you ever did that. So you basically dispel one, you top everybody off, dispel the other. Here's Dividing Strike, that's soak, and also all of these, besides the Spark of Tyr, leave puddles on the ground. There's the Titanic Blow. You see right there. So basically the way you deal with this fight is if you do Spark of Tyr and the Dividing Strike right here happens, if you're in a coordinated group, you just have you and one person with a hard DR or an immune soak this, so not the whole group has to soak right after a Spark of Tyr, because everyone's going to be low, right? It puts a lot less pressure on the healer if you just have like some of the hard DR soak it. Everyone gets in, they pop DRs. And then when he reaches 0 energy, you move him to the middle. So the reason you move him to the middle is 1, so melee can have high uptime during this phase. And what this phase does, he puts a shield up, and then he does balls around the room, and you have to soak the balls before they hit the pillar, or they do big AoE damage, and each ball you soak gives you haste, up to 5. So you want to have everyone spread out in the room, and basically just soak the balls for a higher damage increase. And like I said, the ordering on his spells besides Spark of Tyr is random. So you could go like dividing strike, group conal, and then tank hit, or you could do dividing strike, group conal, dividing strike, then tank hit. Like it could be literally anything, and it's kind of annoying that way. So you're going to hear Spark of Tear, and then if we get dividing strike, then we'll have someone immune. So there's the group conal. A little advice is you kind of want to tank him like near the edge of the room, so not what I'm doing, and you also want to overlap puddles. Like you see here, I put the conal into an old puddle, so that way it's taking up less space. And then here's the dividing strike. And then now it's either going to be group frontal or tank. You see it's tank hit again. And then you drag him to the middle. Then he does his AoE phase again. So basically it's Spark of Tear and then 4 abilities. And then he phases every single time. And that's the whole fight. You just rinse and repeat that. So when we tried pre-immuning the Spark of Tear, it just instantly went off. I'm not sure if it still does that, but the last time we tested it, that's how it worked. So here you might see the Dividing Strike immune. Nope, he does the group conal. And then this will either be a Dividing Strike or the tank hit. It's Dividing Strike, so we have the Hunter solo it. So there you see, 2 of us soak. Easy. And you have to have at least 2 people soak or he gains a permanent damage buff. There's the tank funnel. Does huge damage. That's it. That's the whole pack. The next pack is a required RP pack. It has a Timeline Marauder, which does huge AoE damage in 1 kick you have to do. And it has the Infinite Watchkeeper, which does swirlies on the ground that you have to dodge or you get stunned, and it is a decurse. And then there's Infinite Fury, which is just AoE damage. So you see here, there's a little Timeless Curse that goes out. Here's the Infinite Schism. This is just AoE damage and little puddles you have to go. And then it's Infinite Fury, which is just massive AoE damage. And you want to kill Skull first. So the reason you kill that one first is that it has way less HP. And it basically just takes away half the damage you take. And then there's the kick. Ideally, you want to kick that as late as possible. So he's not casting like right off cooldown. And yeah, you pretty much just have to deal with this pack. I would probably lust the very first pull, and depending on how long the room takes you, you might have lust up for this, but probably not. This pack is just a hard pack. There's no LOS spot we could find, so this is just hard goes through LOS, and the range is 100 yards, so you can't just like outrange it. But yeah, required RP pack. And then once you do that, you go through the gauntlet. And the gauntlet, there's not really a trick to that. Basically, you're kind of just hoping you don't mess up. Leaps are really good for this. Like, VDH is really good. And then you see I fail. If you're an immune class, like a Paladin or a Rogue with Cloak, you can get, like Paladin can get, like, halfway through and then bubble and then just run straight through. And it makes it a lot easier. And then we're going to fast forward. And then one person needs to start RP here. So you see I walk up here. And then start RP while you're channeling, and then these guys come down. All right, so now 2 new dragons, and these are required again. There's the Diversionist and the Saboteur. The Saboteur does the Timeless Curse ground stuff, and then the other one does Infinite Fury and Timeless Curse. And then the Saboteur does Bronze Exhalation, which is a frontal that's just like the last boss, which you'll see. And you want to kill the Diversionist first because you want to kill the Infinite Fury guy first. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the whole pack. You just rotate defenses on the Infinite Fury, and you kill the Diversionist first. So let's go over the next area while we're waiting. So the next area is you have to kill 3 dragons. So there's 3... Infinite Rift Mages. There's 4 total, but 3 of them connected to the gates. You need to kill at least 3 to go. So you need to have 3 to go to the second boss. I guess you don't need the third one, actually. Yeah, you don't need the third one because you can just RP with from Morchi's side. So you only need 2 that are right next to the gates you have to leave, but you can kill all 3%. Percent's actually like kind of tight from the MDT I saw this week, so we'll see. So basically this next area is all about killing temporal fusions and the temporal deviations and clearing the sand. That's basically all the room's about. And you just basically make yourself a path to the portal you want to go to. And yeah, so the temporal fusions just do a tank hit. The infinite mages, rift mages, they do 2 casts. They do temporal blast, which is a tank hit, and then they do infinite burn, which is a slow and dot. It can be dispelled or it can be removed with freedom, tiger's lust, diffuse magic, stuff like that. And whenever these little guys die, they just they spawn or they remove some sand and do big AoE damage. So you see here's the AoE damage, and they remove sand, and you just make a path basically. Knocks and stuff like that are always good. And then there's going to be another guy in this area called the Time Stream Anomaly. If you watch the Galakrond's Fall video, it's literally the same mob. He does Bloom, which is a tank dot, and 1 other ally dot. And you basically need to dispel the ally and leave it on the tank, because the tank is going to take a lot less damage to it than the other person will. And then he does Untwist, which is a tank frontal that leaves puddles basically where it's pointing. So you want to point that away from the group, ideally in like the sand area, so that way you're not like having to dodge puddles for the group. It basically just takes up as little space as possible. And yeah, you make sure you pop a defensive for Untwist, because that's really hard hitting ability. There's the frontal, you see him pointing it like towards the sand stuff, and almost all the puddles spawn in areas where nobody has to dodge. And you basically just do that over and over for the entire area. It's like really simple. Just press W, get through it as as safely as possible. And yeah, that's about it. So after this part, you get to choose if you want to go to Morchi's side or if you want to go to Time Lost Battlefield. So depending on your lust, if you want an effective lust, I would go to Time Lost Battlefield first, because that boss is strictly harder in my opinion. It's actually a pretty hard boss to deal with, especially if people aren't familiar with how the boss works, which I'll explain when we get there. But I'm pretty sure in this run we go Morchi first. So I'm going to fast forward through this hallway, and you see we kill this second Rift Mage, and it finishes this portal cast. You had to wait for RP. Alright, so we go Morchi's side first. So here, these dragons you can skip by just either running past them or having like a priest mind soothe. You can shroud them. So basically what they do is they summon whatever side you're on. There's the mechanical side, and then there's the Murloc side. So pretty sure this is the Murloc side, and he summons a bunch of Murlocs. So there's the Millennium, and the dragon does Millennium Aid, which is just like a shield. It does like pulsing AoE damage, and you need to cancel that. And then there's the Time Lost Wave Shaper, which does Bubbly Barrage and Fishbolt Volley. You just 2 casts you have to kick or CC. Tide Hunters, which do Soggy Bonk, and then Slobbering Bite, which is just a bleed and then a tank hit. And the other ones don't do anything. So yeah, pretty simple mechanics. Pretty simple. You want to do one of these packs while you wait for RP, otherwise it's kind of a time waste. Alright, so now it's on to Morchi. So she has a couple main mechanics. She has Sandblast, which is a tank frontal. She has More Problems, which is the intermission right here. And the way you do this intermission is you find the one that doesn't have a hat. Pretty simple. You just go around the room, find whichever one doesn't have the hat, and then you're good. Use the ping system, it kind of helps. And then her other abilities are Familiar Faces and Time Traps. So Familiar Faces spawn clones of you at your feet, and you basically have to either CC them or run them over Time Traps, and that CCs them for you, but it also does AoE damage and puts a dot on you that stacks. So that's pretty much how you deal with it. You either CC them or you run them over Time Traps. So you see Zephyr there because you know we're about to throw a bunch. The tank can kind of just ignore his for the most part, as long as you have CDs for Sandblast, because Sandblast does an absurd amount of damage. So basically a strat you can do is if you have like AoE CC like Mass Entangle or Sigil of Fear, Sigil of Chains, Landslide, is group up for the familiar faces cast, wait till all of them are like set spawn, then move away, and then drop like a Sigil of Fear on them, drop a Mass Entangle, drop any big AoE CC, and you can basically just ignore the mechanic. Now, the only issue with the strat is it puts a hard Enrage on the boss to where you just don't have any room because of time traps. And it makes getting around the more problems phase really hard. So I would say on 4 week, it's a pretty viable strat. But on Tyran, you're going to have to be really good with your movement in the intermission phases to do that strat. But yeah, you can see they just hit the fear. I don't know if they've changed this since the PTR, so they might be on PvP CC durations when you guys actually play it on live. I'm not sure, but that's how we could deal with it on PTR, even on the last week. So I would say that's a safe bet. They also increased the duration of her intermission phases. So like this, like the ad phases last longer, and she casts them less often. So when you guys do this on live, you won't have nearly as many ad phases as we did. It'll be a lot slower. She'll cast Sandblast a little more often. And yeah, that's about it. It's a pretty simple fight, pretty straightforward. Just deal with the ads, let the stacks drop, use hard CC, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and you can see like the little robots that get summoned. And then you go through this gateway, and we're on our way to the Time Lost Battlefield. So the Time Lost Battlefield trash is pretty simple. So on one side, there's these mobs called Pendulums, and they just do a time beam cast. You can CC it without recast, but they're kind of forced desynced, which is really awkward. So you're basically just like chain kicking and CCing. And then on the other side, there's Chronaxes and Pendulums, and Chronaxes do like a little temporal link. It puts a shield on the mob and a healing absorb on the person that you have to like deal with. Does a crap ton of damage, and it basically just shares the damage he takes. You can immune that. Think you can vanish and feign, and I would just mostly skip those mobs. They're not worth the percent. They're kind of annoying to kill, and they give very little percent. Like they give 3% total. And you see I'm pulling these. So these mobs are actually like not hard, they're just annoying. But yeah, these literally just cast a time beam. They don't do that much damage, and you just chain CC them. So it's pretty straightforward. All right, let's go on to the Time Lost Battlefield trash. So this first thing is going to summon is the little destroyer. He does 2 mechanics. He does the Volatile Mortar, which targets 1 person, and he'll put 2 fire lines right next to them, and you're basically kind of guiding where that goes. And it'll put like little circles underneath your feet and fire to your left and right. And you just guide where that goes, and he'll also summon bombers, which shoot out the back of the motley you see right there. It's based on where the person is standing. This might be the old version, I'm not sure, but yeah, you'll kind of see. And then there's the Dorm Bombers, shoot out the back of the mob, and then you basically CC them, and you either run into them to blow them up, or you kill them. And once they die, they also explode. And yeah, pretty simple mechanic. Very easy mob to deal with. Gives a lot of percent. It gives 7.5% right now, so pretty easy to deal with. And then after this will be a 3-pack. It'll be 2 healers and 1 like lieutenant mob who does a groundle that you have to dodge. And the other 2 mobs are a 2 kick rotation. So you need 1. Ideally, you have 2 melee on each. I don't think you can get each one with melee and range, but maybe with like a Curse of Tongues or like a long lockout, you can. And then here's this 2 kicks. You had to kick the Rallying Cries, and then there's the Consecration you have to dodge. And that's it. These mobs are literally just kick and rinse, repeat. So the Time Lost Battlefield boss, so this one's kind of an annoying boss. He has a couple mechanics. He has Mortal Strikes, which is the tank debuff. Whenever this goes on you, it does a chunk of damage, and you can no longer attack or dodge, block, or parry. So this basically means you're taking full damage no matter what. You want to use heavy DRs for this or kite until this debuff falls off. Ideally heavy DR. Sometimes he will cast Bladestorm immediately after this. If Bladestorm leaps to a target and then chases them down at reduced movement speed, and you basically just don't want to get hit by it. And then he does an ability called Shockwave. So I'm gonna pause really quick to tell you the importance of Shockwave. So Shockwave targets a player. It does a big conal, and it can kill these little guys on the ground. You see like the little like time guys. Some of those are your allies, some of those are your enemies. The enemy ones will spawn throughout the fight when he summons them. And if you kill the ally ones with Shockwave, the Shockwave can kill your friendlies, then it will give him a stack of battle senses. And whenever he lands a successful melee, it does big AoE damage. That combined with Mortal Strike, which allows you to not dodge, parry, block, you're taking all that AoE damage. So you want to reduce the amount of stacks you have by pointing the Shockwave near the edges. And Bladestorm also kills it, so the Bladestorm will give you stacks as well. So you see that frontal right here, he's going to kill a bunch, he's going to gain stacks. Boom. Now we're going to take a lot more AoE damage. And then he's going to spawn 3 adds. He's going to spawn the Axe Thrower or Archer. They do a serrated bleed, and you need to CC that. It does not recast, so make sure you have a CC. And then they have like a Conjurer or a Warlock. Just kick the chain, kick those, and then the Grunts don't do anything. And then he spawns the adds again. There's the Shockwave again. You want to bait all of these towards the edges. So like right here, you don't have to worry, it won't be killing friendlies. And it basically just reduces the damage you take as a group. So basically the easiest way to do this fight is kind of like, you basically, every time for Shockwave, you stack up and you just move between 2 points back and forth. That's it. That's all you have to do. And it reduces the amount of stacks you have. Sometimes the ad spawn and the Shockwave will overlap, like the very first ad spawn or the second one. I don't remember which one overlaps with an ad. There's a serrated axe, you see it. And then there's Shockwave again. And you can see what I mean. You basically move between 2 points. You just go back and forth, and it keeps it very contained. Ideally, you're like more on the edge here, and then there's Bladestorm right as the ad spawns. There's the serrated axe, does a big chunk, and then the bleed, and look how fast our mage cheated from that. It's a very deadly ability. And there's Mortal Strikes. And that's it. That's the whole fight. I would lust on this fight. This fight's very dangerous, but if you're on Fort, you might need to save it for the pack after this. The pack after this is a very terrifying pack. Basically, it's 3 of the Infinite Fury mobs that I was telling you about earlier, or well, 2 Infinite Schisms, but they're basically the same thing. So this next pack is 2 Marauders and an Infinite Slayer. The Marauders each do Infinite Schism, and they also do their kick, so make sure you kick both of those. It needs 1 person per kick, so 1 melee kick per kick. If you have 2 range, they'll need to rotate unless it's like an Evoke or 20-second kick. That might be able to get all of them. Then the Infinite Slayer does Infinite Fury and the Bronze Exhalation Frontal that we saw earlier. So you have to deal with that both, and you have to dodge the puddles from Infinite Schism. This pack is really dangerous. I would lust it. So here it comes. You're going to kill the little ones first again. So you want to kill Skull, then X. Just single target them down. If your healer has like insane throughput, then feel free to kill them kill the 2 evenly just to get them both dead at the same time. Here's like how much like insane damage you're taking. And then you're going to see the frontal. Just make sure you defensive for each one of those. Boom, Skull dies, then X dies. You can see how like frequently these cast, like these are just like absurd mobs. They just chain cast over and over. Like they're absolutely insane mobs. And yeah, it's the whole fight. We're going to fast forward. All right, so now Chrono Lord. So this fight, pretty easy. It only has a couple mechanics. He summons Infinite Keepers, and these Infinite Keepers do a % of his HP. He does 3 ad sets, I believe, 2 solos, and then a double. And then each of these cast Infinite Bolt, and they cast Chrono Burn, which is just a dispel. So usually on the solo ones, it's pretty easy, but on the double, there's 1 double set, and it's pretty hard. You have to have like dwarves, mass dispel, stuff like that. And then he has the orb mechanic, and these orbs, like two orbs spawn under ranged players' feet. It prioritizes ranged. it will slowly fall down if you stand under it, and it'll quickly fall down if you don't, and each one that hits gives you a debuff that makes you take increased damage from the orb. So if you let both hit, you're probably going to die. It's a raid wipe. So basically, you want to have one person assigned to doing the orbs where they will not move and everybody else moves out. Keeps it pretty simple. If you have multiple ranged, like if you have like 4 ranged, you might need to communicate it a little bit more. But yeah, you can pretty much just have one person do it. So you see there's the debuff. And he does that. And then there's the frontal. So the frontal is a big initial damage and then a heavy dot afterwards. You basically want to rotate a defensive for each one. And they also overlap with all of the adds in P1, so it gets a lot harder. There's another breath. You can see it's like it's not a high cooldown. It's like comes out pretty often. So there's ad set 2. You see how much HP damage he took. And then we're gonna kill the ad again. You just want to focus down these ads because these do a crap ton of 8 damage to the boss. There's a frontal again. And you see the ads casting on you the entire time. And this is going to be the double ad set. So he's going to spawn these ads, and then he's going to breath while these 2 ads are running. You just want to mark one ad here. He's going to breath right here, so you see I'm standing still because I know he's going to breath. And then you go over, and you just kill one. You want to focus one down here, because if you don't, you're going to be getting 2 Chrono Burn casts, so that's too many to spell. So the faster you kill one, the easier for your healer it is, and the less likely you are to die. And so, and then after this, you're going to transition into phase 2. So phase 2 has all the same mechanics, but no ads. It's going to be the frontal, and then the orbs, and then it's going to be one more mechanic called Infinite Corruption. Infinite Corruption is just pulsing AoE damage, and it also spawns puddles under your feet. So if it's just like the Cannon Barrage in Harlan Suite and Freehold, it's the same thing. You can kind of, like here you see you don't need to move like that fast, but you just want to stutter step. Ideally, we're farther back against the wall here, so you see how like close we are? We're taking up so much space, but you can like kind of, you ideally want to drop them against the wall. It's going to do 1 breath per phase, and then it's going to do 1 set of orbs, and then it's going to do Infinite Corruption, and that's the rinse repeat throughout the whole fight. Now, during this phase, once he's below 10%, I believe, you get a bunch of aspect buffs, and you start doing a lot more damage. You have more HP, more haste, stuff like that. So the fight does get easier the lower he is. That's why P1 damage is important. So the lower HP, or the more HP you do besides the infinite keeper damage, the lower HP he starts in P2. There's breath again. So basically, if you mess up the orbs here, like if you take too long to do the orbs, the person doing the orbs could get messed up by Infinite Corruption. So you want to have the first one basically land instantly. Like you want to move out instantly. That way this person can sit in this orb as long as possible before they have to move. So you see here the cast Infinite Corruption, and then he has time to move without us dying. You see how much damage this does. It does an absolutely truck ton of damage. Then he does frontal immediately after once you move him. That's it. Rinse, repeat the whole fight. That's literally the whole mechanics. Fairly easy boss. I would lust P1, I would say, is the hardest because you're taking a lot more damage since the ads are out. P2 might end up being harder on Tyrannical. We'll see. But with the aspect buff, it gets pretty easy as soon as you get below 10%. Yeah. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. I'll be putting up the other 2 as well, and I'll have that all on my playlist. Both the VDH and brew guides are out. I'll have a link to those in the description below. Like, subscribe. Have a good one. See you guys in Season 3.